our newsletters and our website. So it looks like we do have a quorum. If the board can introduce themselves, that would be great. And I'm assuming there might be a possibility that our city councilor representative may be joining us, and that would be Justin Livingston. So Karen, you were logged on first, so why don't you start?
Okay, Karen Johnson, Land Use Chair.
I'm Dave Johnson, Vice Chair and NLA Rep.
Eric, Treasurer and Communications Guy.
Colette, you're on mute, Colette. Hit the space bar. Now go. Oh,
Nope.
She turned her video off. Jan, why don't you introduce yourself while Colette's getting her video or her mute on?
Okay, I'm Jen, at-large member.
Colette, one more time with you. Alrighty, for the guests, Colette's still having some mute problems, so I'm just going to introduce her. So I guess Colette, hold the space bar whenever you want to talk. For all of our guests, if you have any questions or comments, we kind of make our basic board meetings relatively casual. So you can send a message by the chat feature in Zoom, or if you just want to activate your video and deactivate your mute, we will say hello and introduce you, or at least introduce yourself, I should say. We do have a quorum. We've done our introductions. Do any of our guests have any comments or anything they would like to add to the meeting? Nope. Okay, we did get a request from Central Oregon Intergovernment Council and Cascade East Transit. I sent the board the invite or the meeting request from them. So our next meeting, we will be, part of our agenda will be new bus routes, basically going into our side of town. It will be starting, I guess, summer of next year, and they are asking for input. On that note, there is other bus transportation stuff. So if people have questions about public transportation on the southeast side of town, that'd be a good meeting to attend. Or if you want questions that you want to ask Cascade East Transit, please get them to us and we will get them to them or participate in the meeting. So we always have a call for community involvement. We do have a couple people that would like to step down from the board. They've done their terms. We have links on our newsletter and our website to fill out basically an application, who you are. Please do that so that we can then respond back to you. Now we will go into board reports. Eric will start with the treasurer's report, and for all of our guests, all the treasurer's activity is on our website, but it's also on the City of Bend's website. So as the neighborhood association is funded by the City of Bend, all information is available. There might be a delay of a month, but nothing is secret. So Eric, what's going on?
Yeah, so we have a budget tracker that you guys can all access. It's linked on our agendas that go out in email. It's all on Google Docs. The city is preparing a public tracker as well. I haven't seen it yet though, but that should be in the works. And we've got a few reimbursements that are still waiting to clear, but bottom line with treasurer's report is we have over $12,000 budget. Supposing that we hold general meetings as usual, well, virtually, but if we hold 2 general meetings like we typically do and advertise them with postcards in the mail, that would cut that 12,000 roughly in half, which is still a lot of money remaining for us. So we've got some projects that we can be working on to do some outreach to the community here.
What sort of virtual advertising did we do for this last candidate forum?
That's what I was about to get to. So
okay.
Last month, we didn't have any new expenses. This month, we've got two. We had the two neighborhood-sponsored candidate forums for Bend City Council. I put $60 in Facebook advertising for the Mountain View one, which they kind of let us partner with a little bit. And spent, I think, $75. I don't have that figure right now, but on the NLA organized one with the land use chairs. So we spent a little bit of money to get the word out on Facebook, and each one of those reached roughly 4,000 people, the ads. And that generated quite a bit more signups to the actual event. So it did have some result. That said, we are going to probably do some basic awareness stuff too, like with recruiting for board members and volunteer participation, and getting someone who can speak Spanish to help us out. So we might do some outreach along those lines and do some advertising to support that outreach effort.
To the board, I'm sure everyone saw from the city, there's a new, I think 2 new committees that the city council is forming. We should work in conjunction with the city and I think focus in on that a little bit more, since I really don't know how the city, or even if the city has a direction yet. At least we can advertise that ASAP on the website and in our next newsletter, so that people in the community can sign up for those committees. I believe one of them is for police involvement or police equity, or and I think they're having a first public discussion this Saturday coming up. The other one, I'm not sure the exact title, but it is basically a social equity.
The Human Rights Commission.
Sure. And I think that covers the city's committees.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be a few months before those get stood up entirely. Where it is with the Human Rights Committee, I think, is they're looking at February before people get appointed and have meetings.
Yes, but for the public and for people listening in, that means there's an application process that does not go through the neighborhood associations. It goes through the city staff and city councilors. We can assist anybody in how to do that. I'd say a few of us have been on city committees, and most of us have some sort of communication lines with either staff or council at this point. Council, we don't know what it's going to look like in 3 weeks, but we're still have good communication with council. Anything else with the treasurer's report?
That's it for the treasurer's report.
Okay. Karen, let's do land use. It's
Okay.
very extensive for the people in the audience. There are the southeast side of town. They just said it again. The city of Bend is the second fastest growing city, between 100 and 300,000 people in the United States. And the southeast side of town is going to see a lot of that. Many new developments currently being built and many more in the works. So Karen?
Hi, I said a land use report, but for people listening, I'll summarize it. October 4, the land use chairs, Debbie DeWeese, Bill Bernardi, and Lisa Michelle, put on a fantastic candidates forum. We focus 100% on land use questions. We had the candidates fill out a survey that's been posted, and as well during the forum, it was moderated by Matt McDonald, and some hard questions were asked, most of which were sidestepped, but nevertheless, hard questions were asked. We had, they estimate between 400 and 600 people actually watching. It is now on YouTube, and I think Eric has a link to hook it up in the newsletter itself. But it was very well done. There's no time wasted, and I think it's well worth watching. So that's number one. the Easton Master Plan is having another public meeting. For those who are not familiar with it, it's a big development by Polish going in across from the high school. And it's going to include commercial extending down to Knott Road. And I'm not quite sure what exactly they have in mind. That's what the public meeting is about. And the second one, or third
Karen,
thing,
can I ask a question about that? So that the addition to the Easton project, is that currently outside city limits? I
No,
thought
no.
city limits ended at the current. So,
No,
it could,
it's
so city
inside.
limits goes all the way to Knott Road now.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's really an extension of the bridges. As you just keep on going south on 15. There was a kind of an unimportant thing. They sent out these notices, and it sounded exciting about 2 tax lots going to be used for an RV park. It turns out that, in fact, they have been for the last 20 years. No one noticed that they hadn't been part of the formal city inventory, and so they're having a public hearing to make it part of the city inventory after 20 years. No one is going to object to that. And then, of course, my tree code, for anyone interested, I'm sending out my proposed tree code to everybody. I was hoping Justin would be here so I could ask him, is he going to introduce it? But I don't see him. Anyone who wants an electronic copy, go to Save Bend Trees and Gmail, and there it is. So that's pretty much it for me.
Sorry.
The commercial lot on Easton, how big was that? 'Cause I don't recall that being there.
I didn't get the question.
The commercial zone in the Easton area.
It's new. What
Okay.
what they just sent out is a map, and it shows south of the residential area, running down to Knott Road is going to be a combination of commercial and residential.
So that's because of the requirement for a master plan of its size needs one?
Yeah.
Within
Yes, it
its distance? Yeah, okay.
And hopefully I'll get more
we-
details.
We need to find out more about that, because from how the Southeast Area Plan has been getting discussed, all of the commercial was going to be sort of in the inner part. And from what you had sent out, it sounds like it's also going to be a tax zone, or a tax development area, I believe is the term.
Opportunity zone, yeah.
Opportunity zone.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit confused from what the Southeast Area Plan has been discussing for the last year and a half versus what you had sent out, Karen. So when they have that public meeting towards the end of the month, that's one of the questions we need to make sure gets addressed.
This is also one of those things that we might want to highlight with land use in general, though. That commercial zone, that's a requirement of master planned sites, that it has a commercial zone within, what is it, a mile, half mile of its boundaries or something?
Yep.
And there will be one up at the corner of Murphy and 15th. So that possibly qualifies for part of it, but it sounds like they need one on the south end, right?
I'm not sure. Those are the kind of questions I'm going to ask. I emailed back the engineer to see if I could get more details, like a grocery store.
Yeah.
And he did not email me back.
And that's
So-
exactly what I'm getting at, is this is a new addition to the zoning map on City of Bend, because if you look at the current City of Bend zoning map, that's all residential there.
Yeah.
Now, we would love to have some commercial, but is it going to be another 0.1 acre that is just a check the box? Yeah, sure, it's a commercial ice cream shop or something like.
This is something we absolutely must follow,
Yeah.
because the Southeast Area Plan had a limitation on size of buildings. So from what they've been discussing for the last year and a half or so, 2 years, there wasn't going to be like a new Fred Meyer. There wasn't going to be an area big enough for like a Fred Meyer kind of place. Just so everybody knows, and for the people in the audience, one of the things we've had issues with over the last few years with Bend is certain master plans get approved, and after they go through the whole public process of getting approved, then they do an addendum or a change, and it is very interesting to see what disappears. So for the real estate agents listening in, this is very important because that has happened pretty much on every single development over the last 7 years.
Well,
of the
then,
southeast side of town.
the
Hey,
case that I'm-
James, I live around the corner from you and next door to me, it happened. He knows.
Yeah, the case that I'm raising isn't hypothetical. That's exactly what we saw on Country Club Road. The north end has access to commercial. That's fine. The south end did not. So they penciled in a 0.1 acre little commercial lot that is barely big enough for not even a Starbucks and box checked. So we want something that's meaningful on this aspect and not just a check the box that's not going to serve anyone's interest.
If I can just jump in a second, Cheryl's iPhone had asked the question of what is an opportunity zone, and I would like to have a good clarification of that in my own mind. If somebody can do it.
I don't think tax lawyers can do that adequately. It's a thing that came up with the 2017 tax law that encourages growth and development theoretically in underserved areas. Now, there have been numerous analyses from think tanks, universities, and so on showing that it doesn't actually go to helping underserved areas or to foster development in areas that need it. It instead goes to entrenched interests. There was a story about, I think, Jared Kushner benefiting off of the opportunity zones.
Karen, do you have any input? You were on the planning commission. Were they around when you were on the planning commission?
No, there was no discussion of them at all.
I know Butch is very much against them. Basically, the property tax rate gets frozen in that area, and supposedly all the investment money goes into that direct area. For people who are interested in that, we can find out and we can possibly put something on the website. But I know the Bend Central District, which has been in the news a lot for the last couple of years, is going to be a massive zone like this. So supposedly any money invested there supposedly stays there, but the city of Bend is still going to be required
that
for
is
infrastructure.
actually local law that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The TIF area, which creates special rules for City of Bend taxes. An opportunity zone is actually federal tax policy, trying to encourage development. So yeah, the Bend Central District, that's tax increment financing. And that's just another way to incentivize development and growth in a certain area by deferring the funds.
Who at city staff should we reach out to get a specific clarification about this? Any ideas, thoughts?
We'll check and see who the planner is on Easton right now, but oh shoot, what's his name? One of the guys, who's the guy that's running the CPAC meetings?
Oh,
Damien.
Damian Cernick.
Mhm.
Yeah. He's on the state planning association board's legislative committee, so he's probably got a better grasp of these issues.
maybe we can do a quick invite to him and just have him explain it, or even do a pre-recorded video that we can put on the website, because it is going to be it will affect many new developments for the entire Elbow, most likely, as well as the state lands on the other side of 27th Street. I'm sure any developer is going to do whatever they can to grab those funds. So, or I guess not pay those funds. However you want to look at that. Colette, is that okay?
Absolutely. You know, this gives me a general idea of what it is, and hopefully we can get somebody on that will be able to go further into detail and answer questions.
And what was that, Cheryl? Did you have any other questions or any specific comments or questions about that? Nope. Okay. Um, so is that pretty much enough for land use at this point?
Yeah, there is something, they proposed amendments to the Development Code 3.8, infill plus the new types of housing. Micro housing, of course, has got a huge play. They also have what has not been paid much attention to are small dwellings, which, in fact, what they're doing now is that they're creating huge urban heat islands. And I'm writing another editorial on that there are no trees, there's no shade, we have nothing but roofs and concrete. They have done something interesting, and that's called a zero lot line, where you can have a house. Right now, you have 3 feet between the side lots. So in essence, you have 6 feet between houses. That is a wasteland. It doesn't get any sun, doesn't get any water. It's just wasteland. A zero lot line is you put 2 houses on one lot line. They're virtually together, like a townhome. But that frees up 10 feet on the other side to have a useful outdoor space. For example, like to plant a shade tree. And I just emailed Pauline Hardy to confirm my understanding of it, but it seems to me like a good way to free up some green space. I'm going to explore that.
And I know that free space can also be in the front or back of the house. So you would have a row of, say, brownstones or townhomes, rather than, yeah. So you are correct, but it is not limited to just, I don't want to call them duplexes, because literally it's multiple units can be
That is,
connected together based on the width of the lot.
yeah.
And the micro, if I am correct, is it this Wednesday City Council is discussing the final micro unit, and
It was last Wednesday.
what did they decide?
Well, this was a whole lot like, for the NLA, this was a whole lot like the outcome from the septic to sewer. Pauline Hardy was the lead on writing the code that was intended to flow down the HB 2001 requirements on large cities like us. And at the same time, Kathy Austin was advocating for the Affordable Housing Committee, and essentially got Pauline's ear. So everything that the NLA was trying to do with the Planning Commission and with the City Council, we might as well have just saved our time, because they took the position that micro units. We got a few things in, like one was definitely they cannot be used as vacation rentals or short-term rentals.
Did they have a kitchen requirement per unit? Did they finalize that?
No, yes. The kitchen 10 units
Is
will
it 10
share
to
one
1?
kitchen.
Okay.
I think we got something in there about laundry, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen the final product yet. But I think, we said that, if you lived on the 5th floor of one of these things, where do you store your bicycle? Well, they said, well, there's storage under the roof, but it would be outside. And they failed to pick up the fact that somebody should be a maintainer living in whatever the project is. We also lobbied for there to be a trial area, and the things that several of us that did a lot of research on these micro units found out was that if they're not close to transit and to amenities such as restaurants, markets, pharmacies, and jobs, they just don't work out.
Yeah.
And that was all put to rest by Well, those were old studies, and we have new studies like the one that's going up in the one that has just been put up in Portland, and they showed that one, but it has really no history. So the places where it has a history, it has a bad rep. Uh, First of all, you know, if you put a kitchenette in any of these using in any of these micro units, they become the equivalent of an apartment. So they are specifically excluded from having a kitchenette. They do have a food preparation area of 2 square feet, and they have an under-the-counter refrigerator, and they've got a 20 amp circuit above the counter, which could effectively be used by a toaster oven. And Pauline even says that that was exactly what she uses. So they were predisposed to take the staff's recommendation and the staff's acceptance of Kathy's research over ours.
Yep.
So we went to the city council meeting, or both Lisa and I testified at the council meeting, and both of us were just brushed off. So again, the NLA might have just saved its time and worked on something that's not pounding our heads against the wall.
But it's so frustrating, Dave, because I read the testimony. I read the NLA submission. Debbie DeWeese wrote up something, so did Lisa. The remarks were serious. It wasn't a not in my backyard sort of thing. It was serious remarks that should have been considered. And I get the impression that this is all simply pro forma. You're supposed to have public input, so you have public input, but they're not taking people seriously, and they're really qualified people who should be taken seriously. Very frustrating.
For the
I-
record,
I-
they
I-
were not, I was just going to say, for the record, the micro units were not a necessity of HB 2001.
Nothing
That
to
is
do-
something that is being added here by, I don't know, somebody's behind it. There's a question here from Cheryl regarding the 0 lot lines. I'm always you asked about build more homes in a development. I'm always careful about the term homes and the actual conversation we're having right now, these micro units. So a 0 lot line, I think the best way to describe them would be a townhome. They're going to be limited in height. They're going to have certain parking requirements. The micro units are essentially communal living, and there's all different kinds of ways you can build it, but you'll have 10 units share a kitchen, and I believe it's 1 parking space maybe for each unit. And there was as Dave was discussing, there's a storage area that is not part of the unit. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, is the micro unit limited to 400 square feet?
I think that's the top.
So yeah, so 150 to 400 square feet.
Right.
So yes, Cheryl, these are meant for increased density, but they are
Well,
not homes.
The biggest argument that the staff brought forward was Kathy's argument, and that is that this is for the kind of people like recently graduated college kids to live in while they're looking for a job, or it's for people who work in the city but have to commute from places like Madras and Prineville to come to work. What they refuse to recognize is that high tide raises all boats. And as soon as I charge $900 a month or $700 a month for a micro unit, the guy that has a kitchenette is going to raise his price, because if he, and by the way, if you're using a community kitchen, it only takes one rotten apple to spoil the whole thing.
Yep.
Because nobody is required to take out the trash. Nobody is required to throw away the leftovers from the refrigerator. Nobody is required to wash dishes. Nobody is required to clean the halls. There's nothing in there about maintenance. So they're assuming that these 50 micro units, that like the one in Portland, is 5 stories with 10 units per story, and they're assuming that these people are all going to get together and come to some common understanding of who does what.
Kind of a
And
kumbaya.
where that has been left to happen, it has failed.
That there has to be a resident manager, and the idea that they wouldn't insist on that, it guarantees rats, to say nothing of cockroaches.
Well, and they're going to require it in LS and LM and any mixed commercial. They did leave what
Is that a
HL?
correction for RS and RL? Is that what you meant to say, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. So I just
No,
want to
RS and RM. RS and RM. But
not
RL has
RL as
been
well.
excluded.
RL is excluded?
It is excluded.
Okay. So for people that are listening, Dave is our Neighborhood Leadership Alliance representative, which is the official official city committee that gives every NA a representative to the city of Bend. So all of their meeting notes and everything fall under public notice, notification laws, and they're also obligated by political activity or notification laws. There's been a concern for the Old Farm District for the last few years. The Septic to Sewer Committee was formed, came up with all sorts of ideas and concepts. And then when the city went to go discuss and actually finalize the rules, they basically took the entire septic to sewer conversation and threw it out the window by changing the metrics after the committee basically came to its conclusions. And the same thing.
Let me explain a little more.
Okay.
Nowhere in the Septic to Sewer Committee's records will you find anything about what was it's cross 15th.
The
With all
border,
of
the borders.
Yeah. No. I want to say Sherwood Forest, but
Nottingham.
Nottingham. There is no mention of Nottingham that in any of the septic to sewer. However, guess where they started? They started by saying we're going to shut down the Nottingham pump, and we're going to, instead of going down and breaking up from King Solomon up through the two highly recognized routes back up to 15th Street, they said, no, we're going to go through Desert Woods and we're going to start at Nottingham. And I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the housing, I don't know, the housing community that's going up at 15th and Reed Market. So I'm sure that had a big effect on why they did it that way. So anyway, they just did the same thing with the NLA micro unit study as they did with the micro unit.
So to clarify to the audience, essentially there's been at least 2 committees formed regarding the development on the southeast side of town, and most of the recommendations by the public committees were not, they were listened to, they were not acted upon. And I believe the Southeast Area Plan Committee, in my opinion, listening to their meetings, it seems that a very similar thing is occurring, and there's not even that much joint effort with the county commissioners, and it is the county border. On one side of 27th Street and Knott Road is county land, and the other side is currently the urban growth boundary. But it looks like the city of Bend is going to become responsible for almost all infrastructure upgrades, in addition to what the utility companies are responsible for.
Let me say one thing for the NLA, for the NA record. Councils come and go, but staff is forever. Bend has its own swamp, and they are not elected.
That's right.
So one thing on this, just kind of a general overview thing. There's a bunch of good articles out there talking about how public comment is broken. It's check the box and then move on. The policy work is done elsewhere, and it lets you feel like you're involved, but they're not necessarily, they're only talking to a handful of people. They're not talking to the entire community, and on and on and on. There's a ton of problems with it. And this is one of the things I think that the incoming city council has at the top of their mind, that the manner in which we collect public comment is not especially effective. And how much we spent 2 years on the Septic to Sewer program, paying for mailers to go into every single door, paying for people to knock on those doors. There was actually expense behind this. It wasn't just, let's pop up and have a meeting and talk about things and feel good. They spent a lot of money on that. So that's the kind of thing that when the incoming city council has their agenda setting, goal setting meetings in January, February, they're going to reevaluate how this stuff works going forward. Now, NLA is on the books. It's a formal city committee. So the neighborhood's voice is formalized there. But how we talk about land use planning and all these other issues going forward, that is subject to change. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to have to stay on top of if you want to make sure that you still have a voice in however that changes. Because right now, it very much is broken. We can spend 2 years talking about something and then they go do something else.
Can I just clarify the importance of the neighborhood associations and the participation needed in the neighborhood associations really quick? Like, for those of you who are in the audience, we desperately need a lot of people to show up to these neighborhood association meetings because it puts weight behind our voice so we can move as a unit. And there's 13 neighborhood associations in Bend. They all need increased participation. So something that you can do if you're in the audience is talk to your neighbors, talk to whoever you know in Bend, tell them that the neighborhood associations are where it's at, and that we need people to start showing up to these meetings, like a diversity of people, to start showing up to these meetings and get a little feisty, get a little noisy, and put a little weight behind this business.
And one thing about just, again, on the general concept of neighborhood associations and public comment, it's so much more impactful when we all work together on this. You might be concerned about parking or that new building that's going in down the street. But when you help your neighbors about their problem with that other building that you don't really care about, you start helping each other like that. And that starts giving us a bigger voice, and that gives us more power. So that's one thing that is often derided about neighborhood associations, is that it's just a bunch of squeaky wheels. People don't get involved until something pisses them off in their backyard. So someone didn't take out the trash this week or whatever, and you're complaining about that. It's not that kind of thing. We've got to focus on how we're helping the broader neighborhood here. And that's what the Old Farm District has been trying to do historically. So we really need your help on that.
And Cheryl's just asked a question, were they covered in the candidate forums? So there have been many forums, just for the record, the NLA land use forum, I believe the way they are on our website, the way the questions were asked, it was more about affordable housing as opposed to the voice of the citizens of Bend. So I know I'm a little frustrated, and I know pretty much a lot of people on the other neighborhood associations are frustrated because you'll often hear a sidestep or a diversionary thing about land use laws being required from the state level, but the city still has a say in how these occur. I guess one of the best examples of frustration for me is we recently approved an affordable housing community on the south side of town, basically by with the River Market store by Deschutes River Woods. And in my opinion, and most other people that I've talked to that have been dealing with this for a while, if you're going to have an affordable housing development go in, there should probably be some form of public transportation that goes there. And currently there is none. So if next month when COIC is chatting with us for 15 minutes, they are getting a significant amount of money of state funds. It's either somewhere between $4 and $8 million. But if we are going to start building affordable housing on the outskirts of town, there needs to be a way for people to get from those housing units to the jobs, to the grocery stores, and everything. And in my opinion, it should not be, well, it will happen eventually. That is how Bend has been getting developed for the last 25 years of, well, this will happen. That road will go in. And it's sort of a chicken or the egg argument. And of course, there's always the who's going to pay issue. So when it came to the candidate forum with the NLA, it sort of got diverted to, yes, we need affordable housing, but development does not require things like accessibility to options. They require ADA accessibility. So somebody in a wheelchair who has a difficulty moving, they'll be able to move around in the development, but I mean, other than taking an Uber or a taxi, that's how they're going to get to the rest of Bend. So Cheryl, hope that helped. Let's see here. And so, and this is me as the board chair saying this. I didn't want to get too political today. The elections are 3 weeks out. The ballot measures are printed. Everybody has the ability to read them. Everybody should have gotten one of these in the mail. It's basically dealing with what we have to deal with. The new city council will come in and they will be listing their goals, as Eric said. And at this point, it's a sort of, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But we are getting a stronger voice. I've been a part of this neighborhood association for a while now. And before we had the NLA, there was basically a false communication. We were offered or asked to give a single report per year that required no response from city staff or city council. The NLA now gives us direct two-way communication, but there is still a little bit of frustration as to how it's going. The committee's only been functional for 2 years now, so that is something we can work towards improving. If no one else has anything to say on that, Jen, do you want to give us a NART update if there is one?
Sure. We are reconvening next week, Monday at 4 o'clock. I missed the last meeting due to a prior engagement, but it seems as though we've kind of figured out all the bugs and being able to meet, and we are going to start meeting again. To go back to Butch for a second, I did get a hold of him and he said there's not much to report from CPAC. They're forwarding the current plan version to an online open house, tentatively planned for November, he thinks. That's all he's got.
No, that's fine. It's been frustrating. As far as CPAC goes, Southeast Area Plan Advisory Committee, one of the big issues with developing what the city calls the elbow on the inside of the urban growth boundary is in order for them to develop, they have to have certain infrastructure. sewer and water need to go in first. Avion, I believe, is in the process of trying to upgrade that. One of the frustrating parts is depending on how they decide to run the sewer, we will see more people along 27th Street that will be required to hook up at some point. And I believe they're trying to separate costs into possibly using the State Department of Land's tract that has been purchased, but that is all anyone knows, is that a private developer has purchased that land, and we have no idea when or what will go there. So I will just say 5 to 10 years, maybe faster. We don't
You do
know.
know who that developer is, and it's the same developer that's doing Stone Creek, which has been in the process for what, 12 years and still not done.
Yeah.
So not a good sign.
Frustrating sign.
Woof.
Um,
Good Lord. I will say this, I did sit on one of the CPAC meetings way back in February. During that meeting, there was a lot of talk about the trees that were supposed to remain in that lot or in that area. And now I have heard from Little Bird that they are going to try to take down pretty much all of the trees in that area. Can anybody confirm that?
the current
Build
tree
now,
policy
so.
basically
Yeah.
states that if a tree is in the way of a developer from doing something efficiently, or then they can chop it down, and they have to plant a tree that in 30 years we may be. But this is where Karen has been working now diligently for a year trying to come up with new code. But Karen, not meaning to frustrate you, but if we cannot get the new city council as part of their goal setting process to address it,
Right.
that is our only
Only one.
solution.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
That
and
That sounds
that's
like
just
we
the
need to
way
get
they build
noisy.
now, is that it's cheaper to mow it down and then plant an aspen when you're done.
But people don't, I think, understand what the developers now understand is that at present, Bend does not have a tree protection code. They've got words on the book. Those words are conflict with state law. The present code is not enforceable. It might as well not exist at all. Right now, from a lawyer's viewpoint, there is nothing protecting any tree in Bend from development. Nothing.
Karen, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned something about the concept of concrete jungles and how we're decimating the greenery and putting in concrete and composite roofing and how it's radiating the heat. And I would like to thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's a really important thing to talk
Well,
about.
it is, and no one is really talking about it.
Mhm.
But just for reference from people who are not familiar with it, it's called an urban heat island. You have, especially in the poor parts of cities, they haven't maintained their urban forest, and you can have variations in temperature of between 5 and 17 degrees Fahrenheit. A house can be that much hotter because it doesn't have trees around it. You see what's going on the corner of 15th and Reed Market. The city right now is not addressing the urban heat island problem. Debbie DeWeese told me that last year at the city council meeting, someone raised that specifically for that area, and Sally Russell said, "Oh well, there will be a park, a mile away, and that'll take care of it." But I've been looking at the literature, and in fact, what you need are green spaces by the houses. A park some distance away will not change the fact that when you look down, and I have to say it's so much fun, they hire these drone operators. You get the most fantastic pictures. You imagine looking down on that subdivision, all you're going to see is paved streets, sidewalks, roofs, driveways, and tiny little patches of green. And the only trees will be the so-called street trees, but they are not required to put in shade trees. They have 25 different kinds of trees to put in. They may choose something purely ornamental, purely decorative. No one is paying any attention to this at all.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's one of the most important things that we need to recognize going forward when it comes to development. Thank you so much. Well, where can we find the tree code again? Where was that at? Your revised tree code?
Bend Development Code 3.2.200.
Okay.
I sent everyone an electronic copy of my report, didn't I?
Yeah,
No.
your proposed tree code you did about a month ago.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
guess, Karen, should we put it on the website and say this is a proposed idea?
Thank
I
you.
did not get it, so if you could, please send it to me and I'll
Yeah.
put it online.
I will. It's rather good if I say so myself.
So for any audience members, this is something that Karen has been working on. She was on the Planning Commission. It's basically how to modernize the Bend Development Code regarding trees. And there's a lot of issues with the Bend Development Code because it's essentially 20-something years old. And like anything, everything must be reviewed, updated, things removed, things added, no matter what it is. Whether it's Bend developments or, you know, your house or a relationship with somebody, everything must be reviewed at some point and addressed. So on that note, Eric, do you want to chat about Murphy Corridor? I know
Actually, before we get on to the project updates, let me back
Okay.
up to community outreach and secretarial duties. Since we're talking about recruiting new board members or even volunteers, I would love if someone could help take on secretarial duties. So if you're interested in joining the board and you might be interested in doing secretarial duties, it's not much. It's just taking minutes for our meetings. Would really appreciate that as a focus for our recruitment.
So Eric, I see Kathy Schroeder has logged on. She has expressed interest in possibly joining the board, or she did, but then I know she's been busy as well. So Kathy, there is a application on the website. If you wouldn't mind filling that out and sending that to Eric, just so we have it official, that would be great. You're welcome to chime in if you want.
And it's not so much an application as it's just a contact form so we can get the conversation started.
Okay, great. I'll be happy to do so. Thank you.
Is that it, Eric, regarding secretarial and board?
Yeah, as far as that, and then with Murphy Road, we had a date. Let me pull that up. The bridge is going to start construction. They already broke ground on parts of it. Let's see. So yeah, this I included in the newsletter that the bridge is beginning construction and the anticipated completion date is August of next year. That's for the railroad overcrossing.
So I don't know if this is a positive note. It sort of is. Due to COVID's basically limiting the amount of people driving around and things, most of the city's construction projects in the last year have been completed faster than initial estimates. I think they've been coming in under cost and faster than completion. So, like I said, I don't know if that's a positive, but it's not a negative, I guess.
Yeah, the Country Club Roundabout is expected to be finished next month, which is relatively fast for those things. And we actually did have a delay due to the fire. They were going to start the Country Club Roundabout on was it the Monday or Tuesday of that week when the fires all happened the weekend prior. And they were expecting, because we do things so tightly with the construction schedule, they were expecting a delivery of parts, and it got held up due to the passes being shut down for fire activity. So it was delayed like 3 or 4 days, but it's just interesting to see how that impact touched our construction projects here. wildfire activity. So just got your email, Kathy. Thank you.
And Karen, could you comment on Connie's request? Can we use state law to curtail trees from being removed?
No. There's no state law protection for local, in essence, local trees. The state has, for example, the Department of Transportation has tree requirements. Various state agencies might, but in terms of protecting trees inside a city limit that's not on a state road, the local jurisdictions are the ones to do it.
That sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier. A lot of times you'll see certain political groups or developers point the finger at Salem, but so the city does have control over a lot of what is going on
Yeah.
at the specifics, but it is up to the people that live here. I don't want to say make a noise or think about it, because I'm so upset with all the different people making lots of noise and lots of stink about everything. There is a correct way to address this. The NLA is a great way to start with it, but if we can get other groups involved, that is the way we can change the Bed Development Code positively.
Yeah.
This is Dave. I have talked to Michaela Oliver, who is our the NLA's contact to staff, and I gave her her information to Karen, and I think Karen is forwarding her tree legislation to Michaela, and Michaela would be the actual point of contact for distributing that to the NLA.
Yeah, I emailed her, but she hasn't gotten back to me on that yet. I asked her if she'd do that.
Okay, well, stay after her. She has a lot of stuff on her plate.
I know she does.
And Karen, my next meeting with Ben 2030 is Friday. And we basically took the summer off just due to the frustrations of COVID. So, but I will be having that go back out and trying to get it to as many people to review as possible from all over the city, because this isn't just the southeast side of town issue. This is everything with inside the UGB, the Urban Growth Boundary.
I think putting it on our website, which I hadn't thought of because I'm not electronically inclined, that's a great idea. And I'll send it to Eric tonight.
So let's stay on the agenda. Growth and development projects, the transportation update. As we all know, there's a bond measure. City council and city staff, in my opinion, have been inundated with some social activities the last few weeks. I don't know if anybody saw the humorous clerical error that Sally Russell made and then corrected about 2 hours later. I think that you can always find, even in terrible situations, some humor, as long as you don't take everything too ridiculously serious. But I have been, the group that is behind trying to get the Hawthorne Street station moved has reached out to me, wanting ideas, wanting public commentary to go to the bulletin and everything like that. I have no issues on working on that or working with that group. At this point, though, there's a lot of different groups and people that are upset about the public transportation system and where the Hawthorne Street station is, but nobody's offering any options or alternatives. So in our meeting next month, when we're talking with COIC, that is something I am definitely going to bring up. I have ideas. I personally know people that have thought about it for the last couple of years and possible ideas, but ultimately it's going to be a money thing, even though millions of dollars is coming in from the state. Kathy, did you have something that you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, James, I would just be careful about the timing of getting published in support of the Hawthorne Street folks, because you have endorsed the bond. And the bond committee is pretty worried that the net effect of the Hawthorne Street folks is going to be to torpedo the bond. And particularly if the library bond does pass, it looks like it could be some years before we would go back with anything for transportation, which I think, given how quickly, did you see we were named the #2 fastest growing city in the country today? Go Bend. And the other thing I would say, James, if you have the opportunity, I mean, you have a unique opportunity right now at Bend 2030 and at COIC both to beat on those people to look for a shelter for the winter. We have funding, we have staff, we have no location. And it's easy to sit here when the nights are, you know, last night I was freaking 55, right? And you're not too worried. But we're going to be in a situation soon enough where it's going to be 20 and the wind chill is going to be -3. And the sheriff is not going to let, is using the space that was used last time for somebody else. So the biggest, in my mind, one of the biggest issues of near-term need for space isn't just Hawthorne Ave and the relocation, though that's an important thing too, but it's let's find a place for these poor people at night as winter comes. And it's the people at Bend 2030 and the people at COIC who might have the resources to be able to help solve this problem if enough ordinary people ask them for help. So that is my little lobby for tonight. And now I'll shut up.
I am actually not changing my position publicly on anything. Like I said, today I'm trying not to be political in any way because everything is on the books for the election. Even so, our next meeting is on the 9th of November. The election is on November 3rd. So we're going to have COICC talking with us on November 9th. So
let's put a quick plug here, though, piggybacking off of Kathy's comments. The Homeless Leadership Coalition meets once a month. Their next meeting is on November 6th. So however you feel that week of the election, that's a good thing that you can do with minimal effort. Tune in. They hold their meetings virtually, and they're going to talk some very serious issues about how to find these resources and how to build the coalitions to make something happen here. So I would encourage everyone that has time. It's on early morning, Friday morning, 8 a.m., November 6th. I'll put that in our next newsletter and online too.
Jade, you had a comment?
Yes. The NLA got a lecture from Ian Lighthizer about the NLA is considered staff with respect to electioneering. And I said, well, can members of the NA board take a position? And the answer is it depends on our bylaws, and that if we do take a position, we have to cover both sides equally. So we need to be careful as an NA about talking about matters that are on the ballot or on the budget.
You guys just want to get to the next agenda item, which is the election, and I can start addressing some of that. All right. So I've previously worked in the congressional office and other things where you have very strict guidelines about campaigning. If you're in the congressman's office, you cannot do campaign work. What you can do is step outside of that office and answer the phone. So we've gotten these kind of threat letters from the city before about, as a neighborhood association, you're not allowed to take positions and yada yada. It's smart policy for us as an organization to not do that. We, do our advocacy work. We're good at what we do, and that's what we're going to keep doing. As individuals, you guys are free to go and speak your mind. Once you take this hat off, you're not a neighborhood association member, you're speaking for yourself. And as long as you make that clear, when you write that op-ed and you don't say, like, as a board member of the Old Farm, so it's just taking care that you're not representing yourself as an authority of the city. So long as you don't do that, you have pretty wide latitude to do whatever you like politically. It's making sure you take that hat off and making sure that you're not falsely representing yourself as speaking on behalf of the city. So we've gotten those talks before plenty of times from various members of city staff. But yeah, as we saw this year, we can do a lot of stuff that's political, That's
So,
not
Eric, I
partisan.
just want to clarify to the audience, our current bylaws, which we are sort of in the process for the last year, updating, modernizing. The Old Farm District Board can take a political position on bond measures and policy changes. We are not allowed to advocate for candidates.
Right. Yeah,
So,
and that's what I was going to get at is like, we're not doing partisan work, we're doing educational work. So it's still talking politics, but we're not saying, hey, go vote for this candidate versus that candidate. Now we can talk about the things that are in our sphere of influence, like the transportation bond.
Right, we can take a position on a ballot measure. We
Mhm.
can't take a position on a candidate. We
Exactly.
as Old Farm, or you guys as Old Farm, can take a position. So we could tonight vote to endorse the bond. Since it's not on the agenda, I wouldn't do it because we haven't public noticed it enough, but we could have.
Yeah.
So it's just the candidates we have to be really careful about. So Dave, I think you're being more careful than we need to be according to the bylaws I just saw.
well, Dave's in a different situation because he is the official Neighborhood Leadership Alliance representative. So he's in a different boat.
Yes,
Historically,
I am considered an employee of the Bend, and
The
I'm
Bend.
governed by the same laws that they're governed by.
There is hell hope you're getting a big salary for that, Dave.
Well,
Is a little bit.
you know, you've been there, done that.
oh,
What's
I think he
fun
gets
about that
free
is that's
beverages
still-
and cookies every now and then.
That's still a little bit sticky because the different committees of the city, they're committees of the city just the same as NLA is a committee.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the environmental committee or the CTAC, the Citywide Transportation Advisory Committee, those were committees that were planned and they selected members based on their ability to advocate for the ultimate outcome.
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
I mean, Mike Riley and Karna Gustafson are out there beating the streets for this stuff. So, you know, it's.
I think, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I remember that there were different perspectives for standing committees versus ad hoc committees, and the NLA is a standing committee. So,
No.
no?
I never got to that fine a level with Ian on that. He just, you know, he gave us a blanket, and I questioned the blanket and said, well, if I'm not representing the NLA as an NA board member, can I advocate? And he says, as long as your bylaws allow it, and as long as you stay either neutral or show both sides, then you're not in the woods.
And yeah,
So-
that's where I think so long as you take that hat off.
So historically, since I've been the board chair, what I have tried to push for regarding the Old Farm District Board is if we make a statement, I have tried to get unanimous consent of all the board members. Even though technically our bylaws, we could do a 4-3 and that would be a majority vote. I don't personally, and this is the way I've been running it as the board chair, is I don't advocate a basic majority for opinion. As far as the Old Farm District goes, I believe the board, if we cannot resolve it all and come to an agreement, the 7 of us as board people, then most likely whatever issue it is probably extremely controversial, and we are not going to be adding to the situation with a 4-3 kind of vote. I mean, that's historically, that is how I've viewed RNA. Just so everyone knows, people that listen in the audience, we are very active, the board, and we always listen to and take public input and comments, and we will do everything we can to introduce people to certain city staffers where things can get done. Doesn't necessarily mean we get the results we want, but you know, that is the way we are as far as the neighborhood associations. Other NAs in town, or let me rephrase that. There are people confuse homeowners associations with neighborhood associations, and a homeowner association can easily be hijacked by a few people in a neighborhood. And we represent 4,000 plus tax lots, and that number is growing every day. Literally every day they're building and finishing homes every single day in the Old Farm District. And just really quick, we are going to have to address the borders. We got asked about the borders in our annual compliance report by the city staff. So as these neighborhoods, what is it, the Easton off of 15th and RV parks, the RV park's most likely going to be Southeast Bend. But we need to address this, I would say, by February.
Yeah, we have a draft bylaws that we were going to push at our next general meeting, because that requires a vote of the general membership, not just us as the board. And the proposal was to take that border straight down 15th Street to Knott, all the way out to the UGB.
I know that, Eric. I'm just.
Well, I'm reminding that because the expansion of the Easton Master Plan pretty much makes that case for us. Our border goes through the existing Easton, but it does not include the expanded part of Easton that they're applying for right now.
It
Now, if it's
does.
all one development, it would make sense to be all in one neighborhood.
No, it does. That is, I've always pushed for, and ultimately, there's a long range reality that I do not think the Old Farm District should absorb another 5,000 or 6,000 units.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Well,
What we
I'd-
can do is I know Dave and I have talked about it. Eric and I have talked about it. Other board members in the past have talked about it. We should do like a temporary absorption so that those people are represented, and then at some point break it off. I mean, come up with some new neighborhood association, maybe do south of the train track. I mean, east of the train tracks, west of the train tracks. I don't know yet.
27th, yeah.
I have called it mentoring. So then the NA boundaries, excuse me, have been on the NLA agenda for the last 3 meetings, and it's always at the last, and so there's never enough time to address it. So I'm going to be talking to Lisa and to Hans about moving it up closer to the front so that we can at least get some ideas on the table, which would include something like the expanding as a mentor the area, and then at some level when their organization gets mature, then cut them loose and just have a new NA.
Something is going to need to
And
be
I would
done.
I'd like to discuss that before the NLA.
Yeah, as the Bend Central District starts to get developed, and if a bunch of high-rise apartment condominium complexes start going in there, right now the majority of that is old school commercial and industrial lands. So you're literally going to have areas that are going to start having thousands of residences that never existed before in the same way we are. So at some point there may need to just be a new map of Bend put down and completely redrawn. I don't know. This is
So
something
that's
that
the
needs to
thing,
be
is this
addressed.
conversation is bigger than this, and
Yes.
it's a lot further down the road.
Hey, man.
Because what we're talking about right now is the Elbow and the Stevens Road tract and Easton Master Plan and all that. That would put us roughly at the size of Mountain View in terms of population.
I don't know. That's only 50. I think Mountain View's 5,700 tax lots
Yeah.
with all the apartments, or let me rephrase that, 5,700 doors.
Right.
I think we're around 4,400 doors right now.
Yeah, so ballpark. So
Yeah, I just,
the thing is,
For the
is we've
people
got
that are
these
listening-
NAs that are getting very big. Meanwhile, Old Bend is not going to grow.
No.
You know, so this is going to be a conversation down the road, but we have the short-term conversation of the UGB is expanding in our neck of the woods, and there's this big spot here that isn't being covered. So short term, we just need to blast out the borders to the UGB and then have that conversation about splitting in the future.
I think that we've all had this discussion before, and I think that's pretty much what we should do, but we need to make sure the city and the NLA knows, I mean, it will not make sense for us to absorb another 3,000 units or 4,000
Well,
units.
and that's the thing is we had this conversation. I drafted the bylaws in December of last year, and we notified the city about all of that. They had no complaints. That the rule is hold a general meeting, declare that as your boundaries. That's your boundaries.
And we can do that. And yes, the city wants somebody to take responsibility for all the new homes. So I don't think they have an issue with it being
Right.
us, but just in the reality of how things should be, long term, it shouldn't be us, but short term, we're fine with it. That's where Dave says, mentor as his
One
words.
parallel question with that is, can we expand the number of seats on the board?
Yes, absolutely.
Is
Kathy?
the UGB already done? Has the
Yes.
city already taken that land in? Because we can't expand until the UGB is done.
No, the
It's not
UGB
annexed.
is finalized. The city limits are not done. So the city, those people in the elbow have to choose. This is different than the last UGB expansion 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the rest of the city of Bend got to choose the annexation. Now, the people that actually own those lots get to choose if they are annexed into the city. So there's been a very big change.
So there won't be any need for neighborhood association presence until they're actually part of the city, right?
Correct, but the city limits do go out to this new development that's the extension of the bridges. And I think even that's like 1,000+ units right there. So, yeah, so, and Karen, that meeting's October 27th?
Let me see. No, October 21st at 5:30.
21st.
Yeah. And
Okay,
that's on Zoom.
yes.
And I think we've already sent out the notice that has the link for it.
This is just a question of the board to stay on agenda and timing. Do we need to discuss this topic anymore this evening?
No,
Okay, that being said, we are now, really quick, septic to sewer. Beth's not here, but anybody who is affected by this needs to sign up with Ron Hand and get those weekly announcements if it relates to them. And that's to the audience, and that's to anybody that may watch this in the future. We don't really need to have a discussion about that currently, or at least this evening. Other ongoing projects next month, depending on how the transportation bond goes, that's going to be a very significant or very difficult conversation. Old business, election season, education events. I just want to give 2 thumbs up to Eric and Karen. You guys were both very helpful with other NAs doing the candidate forums for Mountain View. Eric, that Mountain View forum was great. One of the other things that they have on their website that we link to from a technical, their camera is 90-degree off in the Facebook video. So if you could contact them and assist them with that. I don't know which video it was.
No, I know the one because I gave them a replacement on YouTube and told them to delete that one, but I think that's on their defunct site or something.
Just a friendly reminder. And Karen, she gave us a breakdown on the NLA candidate forum. Those are all available online. Board member replacement, we've briefly talked about that. Kathy's given us her contact information. Anyone else, anyone in the audience, if you know anybody that's interested, as long as they live or own a business within the boundaries of the old farm district, they're eligible. Bylaw review, we've briefly chatted about that again this evening. General meeting planning. At this point, I think Michaela said that if we participated in that candidate forum, we could put that down as a partial general meeting, or that was an acceptable fall general meeting. I am not opposed if things change to have one in December or January. They do not need to be in the spring and the fall like they historically have. We can make them whenever they want. My primary concern is I just want to make sure that we get as many people listening to it and interactive about it. My concept was we could do a meeting pre-recorded, send it to everybody, and then see if anyone has comments, and do it like a two-part general meeting. What's up, Jen?
I still would be interested to see if we could somehow do a 101, because when I joined the board, it was kind of like hanging on for a roller coaster ride, not quite knowing what my role was. But if we can have an open discussion of how to participate in neighborhood associations, whether it be easiest participation is signing up for the emails and then helping send in emails and letters to city council, or becoming a board member or a liaison, and how this whole thing works as part of the big chess game that we are currently playing.
So easily we can do a 101. We now have the audio visual and camera and microphone equipment that we purchased on our last budget. We could all do a little, hey, what's going on, 2-3 minute chat, combining it into land use. We could have Karen do a land use. I could do a general side from the board chair. Dave could do what it needs to be, the NLA, or what the NLA actually does. Jen, Colette, if Colette's still with us, depending on her schedule, we could all do a 2 to 4 minute, this is the Old Farm District NA board. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. Who wants to be a part? Do you have any questions? So yes, that we can schedule off the board meeting time and compile that and into segments. I'm absolutely supportive. If we want to vote on that now, we can. It's up to, it's literally up to each one of us's individual schedules and how we will do it in this time. Like I said, we have the ability 100% to do that. And I'm pretty sure Eric will agree. It will not be difficult. We just have to come up with what we're going to discuss and how we're going to put it together, have cute music in the background, whatever.
Yeah, the hard part is keeping it short, really. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So how do we talk about this stuff without going nuts on every aspect of land use, for example? Like what is the best value for someone who is coming to our meeting for the first time and they think they might want to be involved? What can we do with that? So I think,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's real value in actually sitting down and sketching that out so that we can have a volunteer coordinator, and so that we can have more discrete roles, because we keep saying we want people to help out with, talking to the PTA, and you've taken on a lot of that, and help talking to groups that we don't normally speak with, or even talking to the HOAs, which are kind of a natural constituency, but for whatever reason don't play ball. So how can we build these connections and with the political aspects of city council and so on?
Right. I think like if we could break it down in very like simplistic terms of what we could be capable of doing, like for one thing is the land use notification policy and how we could possibly help shape that policy through participation, through the NLA, like showing how that could possibly work. I know that a lot of people are really frustrated about these freaking poster board signs that are super tiny and fall apart and blow in the wind and don't really do much in notifying the public. And by the time it gets into our laps, the decisions have already been made. Well, how do we address that? We go towards the land use notification policy. We try to change it, right? Am I off?
Well,
Maybe.
there's a fundamental problem with that kind of notification. They don't want to hear from us until the application has been submitted. By the time the application's been submitted, they have worked with the planner for months and is a done deal. That's what I think caused Bill Wagner to resign from the Planning Commission. He wanted to get in earlier before the process got a PZ number and started through the system, and the staff did not want him involved. We've hit a hard concrete wall here.
So speaking of education, I just posted a link to this personal blog that I'm starting up here. I just haven't had time. It's election season. I've got a 40-hour-a-week job and on, but I want to use this to talk about these kind of issues. And I wrote an article here talking about one has an inventory of vacant land. So we don't get the notices before it's a done deal effectively. You know, they've crossed their T's and dotted their I's and all that, and it's going to go forward as soon as we get that notice. This is one of the ways that we can get people educated about what's going on in the neighborhood. You can drive by and look at a vacant lot and daydream about what might go in there, but if we can do this in a coordinated fashion, assess what the empty spots are or what the infill opportunities are or so on, you know, the city has the resources. We just need to teach people how to use them.
Eric, two questions. One, Kathy had a bit of a long part of the chat. Is the chat part of the video record that gets saved in the Zoom message? Okay, that's good. So then to answer Kathy, when it comes to land use notifications, over the years, this has been a challenge for us. So when Justin Livingston was our land use chair, he did not feel, he sort of chose what notifications were brought up and discussed, because there are many different kinds of land use notifications, from somebody doing a garage addition to somebody doing a master plan on 20 acres. I know the NLA has been addressing this or has been attempting to address this. Dave can fill this in. And most people that have been following this for years all think the land use notification is extremely flawed, to be polite.
Yeah.
Okay, to bring you up to date on what the NLA has been doing, the land use subgroup has been putting together a developer package, which has in it the best practices of developer community relationship, and it goes all over. And what we're trying to do is to put together a document that when an applicant comes in with a land use application, the city can just hand that developer this packet, and it has, for example, sample letters of notification, sample letters about the public meeting. Anyway, it's made up of all of the best practices, and Sue Sullivan was a major input to that process. And so right now we're still just kind of filling in the blanks and making sure that we've got everything covered. There are a couple of things, like a couple of videos, Land Use 101 and Land Use 102, that we're still trying to scope out, because Colin's Land Use 101 graphic presentation is sorely lacking in definitions, and I don't know if you had an 8th grade education, you could probably understand him, but if you're a college graduate, the BIN development code is still hard to go. So anyway, that's what, as far as land use notification, that's what we're doing, along with some other things that are low-hanging fruit, like making the signs that show what's going up on a property are visible from the right-of-way. Right now, they're, I don't know, 12 by 24 black and white signs. I think we're upping the size and changing them to red and white. And we're trying to get approved an administrative action. All of these things that we're trying to do have been administrative up until now. And Colin has been working with us very well. And so these red and white signs, he came back with a copy, a sample, and we are very happy with it. So a lot of this can be found on the NLA website.
And that's a 12 by 24 inch sign, as well as some of the other things that the distance to a project. In many parts of town that are already high density, you may have 10 homeowners in every direction get notified. On the southeast side of town, we are still dealing with the fact of large undeveloped lots where you may literally get one homeowner that gets notified for a land use something or other.
Did you happen to read Kathy's chat about what she wrote for?
Yeah, that's why I asked if this is all if the chat gets put on the.
I can email it to you guys. I just thought it was interesting. This is 3-4 years ago when I was doing
Well,
some of this. And so,
but it's very comprehensive. I just finished reading it again, and I would suggest that we put it up on our facts. You know,
I
our
want to
FAQs.
change the neighborhood association name now, Eric, since it says Summit West. But yeah, I'm happy to send it to you.
No, I appreciate that. So getting back to the original concept was to create some kind of 101 product to help prospective board members get their legs and empower them to be more effective.
I think I just got an input from Michaela that said that there's on the Bend website, there is an introduction to for board members of NAs. So I haven't looked at it myself because I've been up to my ass in alligators this week and last week.
No, and they do have some good stuff there. Some of it's what Josh produced when he first came on and borrowed from other municipalities and stuff. But I want to find ways that we can make this more accessible so that we can get more people on board with it.
I think more accessible and more personal.
I agree.
More accessible as in 8th grade level, and put it where people actually are, not the Bend website, because that stuff's been there for years, most of it. And it's not moving. So we need to move it in front of people and package it in a product that people will consume.
And we can advertise it.
Exactly, yeah. If you don't want to read a 50-page NA handbook on the Bend website, here's a 1.5-minute video.
Yeah, I think we need to, I mean, I think I speak on behalf of all of the parents right now that we are burnt to a crisp with this comprehensive distance learning and then all the stuff that's going on at a national level and the fear that we have for our children's future and this and that and this and that. So I will say that this little this neighborhood association does give me hope, and I think it would be nice to hear some of that hope and how we could possibly shape Bend's future through the neighborhood associations. And I know it's going to be hard to get other people in my age group to participate because of the amount of crispy fried that we are. But, you know, if we can reach out to those people and be like, look, it doesn't have to be 20 hours a week. It could be just signing up for a mailer and getting involved with sending in emails to the city of Bend. You know.
So you guys want to start then sketching out some concepts, some ideas that you want to talk about? If I can put you in front of a camera for 2 minutes and riff on whatever topic is most important to you, we can package that up into nice videos and have educational products that are a little easier to click through on the website.
Can we wait until after the election?
So, no, exactly. Like, this isn't happening next week. But it
Well,
doesn't
I
happen
just-
before June 30th.
The election and this current and the new city council, if we had it packaged up and we got to show it to the new city council before they did their planning and goal session, I think should be our timetable goal. But right now, that way it can just be a little bit more personalized.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so that's what I
my
want to
thoughts.
ask everyone as an action item. Think about what you want to talk about. Sketch up a couple bullets that we can start drafting scripts. We can do like a dozen different 2-minute videos or something. That's probably better than doing one 10-minute video, honestly. So let's.
For Jen and her friends, I promote playgrounds at Aldor Food Truck and beer breweries that are built on the southeast side of town.
Yeah, not playgrounds, just the alcohol and the food. Come on.
So if that sounds
Okay.
good, let's come back next meeting and have a couple ideas, and then we can start packaging that up.
So that being said, let's get back to the agenda. Coronavirus response. I have nothing that I want to say on this forum about it.
I just leave that as a catch-all block on the agenda in case we need to talk about something new. The schools just put out their chart again, and yeah, it's not happening this week. So the soonest I think is November 9th.
For the schools to be back in person? Okay.
It's not happening though.
No.
Yeah, until if the adults can't be responsible, we can't hold the children responsible. Any new business, new updates? All the upcoming meetings and events are part of the city calendar. I encourage any of the audience. We try to keep that updated, but literally, city staff, you have Michaela Oliver, Joshua Romero, and Ann Arond one day a week putting out a different update. And I encourage everybody to sign up for.
They also have shoot, what's her name? She used to be with the news station. Is working in the comm shop now. Crap, can't remember her name right now.
Yeah, I mean those are the 3 updates I get. They send out something at least once a week, and then of course the mayor sends out. I think she sends out a letter on Wednesdays now.
Yeah,
So-
and insofar as we're talking about the politics and election stuff, there's a website called Deschutes Grassroots. Now, it does decidedly have a lean to it, but it is the most comprehensive calendar for political stuff that I've seen around here. So if you're looking for debates, it has at least all of that stuff there.
Well,
If
I
you
don't
have a
want to
certain
just
political
include
persuasion,
debates.
it's got some of that stuff too, but we were talking about additional debates for the different candidates, and you can filter out the rest. And
We need to keep everybody informed about land use meetings, planning sessions. There's so many, all the new committees that are getting formed. They all have time, when people can sign up for them and what they're going to be doing. I think there's at least 5 committees that are looking for active members. So whatever someone's personal interest is, there's probably a way you can be a part of what's going on in Bend. And I don't want to say in a political way. I just want to say in an urban social activity way. Whatever your political lean is, that's fine. People need to be taken apart. Yes, Kathy.
Back on the COVID topic, just real quick, because the conversation moved on before I got this out. The Council on Aging, a local nonprofit for whom I work, is launching a new program to connect volunteers with elderly neighbors who are maybe feeling lonely. And so we'll have more details about that sometime next month, but I'm happy to bring that here if it's appropriate, in case there might be someone who would be interested in volunteering, or in case you know of someone in your neighborhood who would benefit from having someone contact them.
that would be a good, we can actually have a 10 or 15 minutes on that, because every winter we always have a reach out program for people that need help shoveling their yards or things like that. And I think that would be a topic that in either the November or December meeting, we should definitely include, not necessarily to promote the Council for Aging, but to promote, we're all neighbors. We can all help each other. And if there's a group that's set up already to do that, then that just makes it easier for the people that need the help or the people that are willing to give the help. Yeah, so if you want, Kathy, let's just, we'll pencil that in for like 10 or 15 minutes in the November session.
Can we do December, just because between now and then I'm insane?
Okay, that's fine.
The election
That's fine.
is eating my brain, even though I don't have any children at home. You're not the only one, Jen.
Eric, I have typed in a chat. How do I send it?
If you're in the chat window, just hit enter one after you typed.
I did, and it's not doing anything.
Oh. Is that on the Zoom chat?
Yeah.
You
Does
can
it-
shoot me an email.
Is it going
Huh?
to everyone, or do you have it going to a specific person, Dave?
I have it going to everyone. And hang on. There it went.
There we
Okay,
go.
I had to have my cursor in the box. But anyway, Kathy asked about Lynn, and so I wanted to bring everybody up to date. I'm still, like I said, up to my ass in alligators, because I'm doing a lot of the housework and all of the shopping, and anyway, so I've
Dave.
been totally distracted.
Hey, Dave, if you ever need help with the shopping, let me know, because I do shopping for my mom, so just holler at me.
Thank you.
And if you haven't found, Whole Foods is now doing the thing where you can place an order and pull up, and they throw it in the back of your car. It's super easy. You just place an order on Amazon, and it saves you so much time.
Thanks for the input.
Yeah, Freddy's
I'm
does that too, right? The click list at Freddy's. Yeah.
Safeway also.
I'm an Instacart person. They deliver it straight to your door. And there's like 10 places in town for a very minor fee. And it's, yes. So Eric, so I'm looking at the chat again, and it's got merged to meeting window. I just want to make sure the chat does get recorded or saved. Anything else that anyone has to say? We're 7:48. I think we've had a productive meeting. Those of you who've been listening that normally don't partake in our meetings, thank you for joining us. If you do have anything to add, now's the time to ask a question. Any other board members, anything to add? We've covered a lot tonight.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I'm going to push for an adjourn.
All right, take care.
All righty. Everybody stay safe.
Yes.